This is time to sleep, so relax. Let your breath slow down. Let your thoughts drift gently like leaves floating on still water. You're safe, you're calm, and there's nothing you need to do right now. Just listen to a quiet story, one without adventure, without urgency. Just a story of a peaceful day. Mr. Pebbleton woke up the way he always did, slowly, with the light of the morning sun gently brushing the faded curtains of his old bedroom. He stretched without much thought, his joints making their familiar soft sounds, and his slippers waiting exactly where he'd left them the night before. He shuffled across the wooden floor to the small window, looked out, and saw the same street, the same sleepy trees, and the same quiet wind brushing against the leaves. Nothing urgent, nothing loud, just the same. And that brought him comfort. In the kitchen, the kettle sat patiently on the old stove. He filled it with water from a jug and waited while it boiled, leaning gently on the countertop. The steam began to rise, curling in slow spirals. He poured the water over a tea bag and watched the color swirl and deepen. He stirred the tea absent-mindedly, as he always did. 10 gentle circles clockwise. He carried the cup to the table and sipped slowly. It was warm. Not perfect, not amazing, just warm. And that was enough. Later, he wandered out to his small garden, where the grass had grown just enough to need trimming, but not enough to cause concern. He sat on his old wooden chair, its paint peeling in comforting patches. A snail crawled along the edge of a garden stone. Mr. Pebbleton watched it, admiring its patience. How simple its purpose seemed. No rush, just movement. Back inside, he prepared a sandwich. Just cucumber with a small pinch of salt, placed precisely in the middle of 2 slices of bread. He ate it slowly, without distraction, chewing carefully and placing the crusts on a napkin. He folded the napkin afterward, not because it mattered, but because he always did. The afternoon drifted in like a lazy breeze. He glanced at the clock, not because he had anywhere to go, but because he liked how the hands moved. Steady, predictable. He sat near the bookshelf and chose a book on clouds. Not to read anything new, but to revisit a page he liked, the one about cirrus clouds. Thin, wispy, like brush strokes across the sky. He looked out the window. There they were, waiting for him. The wind whispered through the trees in the lane beside his house. He stepped outside again, took a few slow breaths, and listened. Leaves rustled. A dog barked in the distance. Once, then silence again. He closed his eyes for a moment and imagined being one of those clouds. Slow, drifting, soft, always above the noise. Later, in the kitchen once more, he boiled water, not for tea this time, but just to hear the bubbling. It reminded him of old conversations he didn't need to remember. He folded a small towel and placed it on a shelf. There was no reason. It was already folded, but it felt nice to fold it again. He picked up a pen and wrote a sentence on a blank postcard. He didn't write a name or an address, just one sentence. Today was fine. He looked at it for a long time, smiled gently, and placed it in a drawer filled with other small notes. As the sun slipped toward the horizon, the shadows inside his cottage grew long and golden. He sat quietly in his favorite chair, a patchy old armchair with just enough cushion to cradle him gently. The light touched the bookshelf, the corner of the table, and the top of a small ceramic cat that hadn't moved in years. For dinner, he boiled a single potato, no butter, no garnish. Just the potato placed on a plate. He sliced it evenly, ate slowly, and wiped his mouth after every few bites. The plate was washed and dried immediately after. He lit a candle as the daylight finally faded. The flame flickered softly, casting warm light onto the walls. He didn't say anything. There was no need. The silence said enough. He sat for a while, simply watching the flame. Then, when the time felt right, not because of a clock, but because his eyes had grown heavy, Mr. Pebbleton made his way to bed. He pulled the quilt over himself, fluffed his pillow, and let out a soft, satisfied breath. The candle still flickered in the corner, steady and kind. The night had arrived, just as it always did. And that was all. Nothing more. No surprises, no twists. Just a wonderfully uneventful day, like so many others. And as Mr. Pebbleton drifted into sleep, so do you.